Frederick Douglass was born Frederick August Washington Bailey to Harriet Bailey on April 14, 1818, in Talbot County, Maryland. He was separated from his mother as an infant, and consequently, he knew her, but did not know she was his mother.
This is my son. It's my son. What are you doing, master?
Harriet Bailey dies when Douglass is 7 years old. He continues living with his maternal grandmother, Betty Bailey. Later that year, he is separated from his maternal grandmother and moved to White House Plantation, where Aaron Anthony, Douglas's owner, works as overseer. When Anthony dies, Douglass is given to Loretta Auld, the wife of Thomas Auld. She then sends Douglass to serve Thomas Auld's brother, Hugh Auld, in Baltimore.
Hey, Frederick.
Frederick Douglass learns the alphabet from Hugh Auld's wife, Sophia, when he was about 12 years old. This was highly forbidden and illegal. Hugh told his wife, if a slave learned to read, he'll become dissatisfied with his position and desire freedom. Douglass later referred to this as the first anti-slavery lecturer he's ever heard. As Douglass began to read newspapers, magazines, and books of all types, his views became clear. This led him to condemn the institution of slavery. Douglass taught other slaves how to read while he was hired out to William Freeland. So many slaves wanted to learn to read that sometimes 40 slaves would come. This went on for about 6 months. When the surrounding slave owners realized their slaves were being educated, they were outraged. One Sunday, they busted into the meeting with rocks and clubs and dispersed the congregation permanently. In 1883, Thomas Auld took Douglass back from Hugh Auld as a means of punishment. Unsatisfied with Douglass's work performance, he sends Douglass to live with Edward Covey. Covey was a poor farmer that had a reputation as a slave breaker. Douglass was whipped regularly. Covey almost broke Douglass with the constant beatings until one day, when Douglass was 16, he fought back. Covey never tried to whip him again. Douglass tried to escape twice in his life, once from William Freeland and again from Edward Covey. Both times failed. In 1837, he met Anna Mary, a free black from Baltimore. They got married and had 5 children. In 1838, soon after Douglass was married, he obtained his freedom. He took a train to Havre de Grace, Maryland, then dressed in a sailor's uniform with the papers he obtained from a free black sailor, he boarded a ferry and crossed the Susquehanna River to Wilmington, Delaware. From there, he went to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania by steamboat and finally to New York City. It took him less than 24 hours to make the trip from Maryland to New York City. Douglass continues to travel north to Massachusetts. He joined the Black Church and other organizations. He subscribed to William Lord Garrison's weekly journal, The Liberator, and attends abolitionist meetings regularly. After he tells his story, he was encouraged to become an anti-slavery lecturer. At age 23, Douglass gave his first speech at a Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society annual convention in Nantucket. In 1845, Douglass published his first autobiography entitled Narration of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, which became a bestseller. At first, skeptics couldn't believe a slave could produce a work this great, but they were silenced. He went on to reprint the book 9 times, totaling 11,000 copies, circulating the United States. Fearful that since his true identity was known, it would tempt Hugh Auld to try to recover his missing property, Douglass was advised to go to Europe for a while. He left for Liverpool on August 16, 1845. Douglass toured the United Kingdom, giving lectures, mostly in Protestant churches. During this time, Douglass became legally free. His freedom was purchased by British sympathizers led by Ellen Richardson. Douglass returned to the United States to produce some regular abolitionist papers: the North Star, Frederick Douglass Weekly, the Frederick Douglass Papers, the Frederick Douglass Monthly, and the New National Era. In 1848, Douglas started sheltering slaves free in the South. He helped hundreds of runaway slaves gain their freedom on the Underground Railroad. Douglas believed that education was the key to better lives of African Americans. In the 1850s, he was very outspoken about the fact that the country would spend $1,600 to 1 on white children to blacks. So for every $1,600 they would spend on white children, they would spend $1 on black children. This was unacceptable to Douglas, especially since the ratio of children was 40 white to 1 black. Frederick Douglass continued to work before, after, and during the Civil War. He met with President Abraham Lincoln many times. In 1863, he met with Lincoln about the treatment of the black soldiers. The Emancipation Proclamation took place on January 1st, 1863, in Confederate territory, and by 1865, everywhere else in the United States. This freed the slaves. Douglas had made plans with President Lincoln to move the newly freed slaves out of the South. Before this could happen, President Lincoln was assassinated. After the Civil War, Frederick Douglass was appointed to many important political positions: President of the Reconstruction Freedmen's Bank, Marshal of the District of Columbia, Consul General to the Republic of Haiti, and chargé d'affaires for the Dominican Republic. In 1872, Douglas's house mysteriously caught fire. The police suspect arson. Douglas then moved to Washington, D.C. The attempt to annex Santo Domingo in 1871 failed. President Grant wanted a naval base to protect U.S. Caribbean interests, and Douglas wanted Santo Domingo to gain more black territory and more black votes to combat the Ku Klux Klan that was gaining territory. Grant signed into law the Klan Act and the Second and Third Enforcement Acts. Under his leadership, over 5,000 arrests were made for the Ku Klux Klan. In 1872, Douglas was nominated for Vice President of the United States. In 1877, Douglas was appointed United States Marshal and in 1881 appointed Recorder of Deeds for the District of Columbia. In 1888, at the Republican National Party, Douglas became the first African American to receive a vote for President of the United States in a major party's roll call. On February 20th, 1895, after a meeting at the National Council of Women in Washington, D.C., Frederick dies of a massive heart attack or a stroke. Frederick Douglass lived a hard life, from slavery to freedom. He believed that education and perseverance were the keys to better lives in the Afro-American community. He continued striving for equality for all human beings, regardless of sex or color. This is Frederick Douglass. My mother and I were separated when I was but an infant, before I knew who a mother was. It is a common custom in the part of Maryland for which I run away, to part children from their mothers at a very young age. I never saw my mother, to know her as such, more than 4 or 5 times in my life. Master, he was a cruel man, hardened by a long life of slaveholding. He would at times seem to take great pleasure in whipping the slave. The men and women slaves received all their monthly allowance of food, 8 pounds of pork or fish, and 1 bushel of corn. There were no beds given to the slaves unless, of course, a blanket was considered such, and no one but the men or women would receive these. We slept on the floor, the cold, damp floor. I say this, but for the hope of being free, I have no doubt but that I would have killed myself or done something for which I should have been killed. Every little while, I could hear something about the abolitionists. It was for some time that I found out what the word meant. White men have been known to encourage slaves to escape and then, to get the reward, catch them and return them to their masters. We were worked in all weathers. It was never too hot, never too cold. It could never rain too hard, blow, hail, or snow too hard for us to go to work in the fields. I will run away. I will not stand it, get caught, or get clear. I'll try it. I have only 1 life to lose. I had as well be killed running than stand here and die. Only think of it. 100 miles straight north, and I'm a free man. Try it. Yes, God help me. I will. I cannot be a slave all my life and die a slave.